Okay, let's continue look on Terragen and Vue and kind of look on plus and minus for both applications. One thing inside the view, you notice that it's provided a little bit more options for you and primarily have a very nice options on load and save work as its process. So you can preset savings after save. And on version 6, Vue was one of the considered most buggiest release, which is created its own process. It was have a lot of times when application was crashing and creating, but it's prompt the developers to create a very nice options of the after savings, snapshot savings, and create all these additional options for your work, which is benefit now. Vue 11 and Vue 12, it's progressively more stable and work kind of response for everything. However, I found that Terragen, it did crash on me a few times, but overall it's much stabler at this time than Vue and more responsive. But again, this is may related to some Vue have much more code and options that embedded inside the application. So complexity of the applications also can affect this. Um, so again, I think after save and save options, nice inside of Vue, in you can save and you can create a little bit easier with incrementals inside the Terragen. So you have the options. However, I found the after save it's very useful and I used many times. Okay, next things, let's look on some closer, which is Vue introduced a reversionary at that time ecosystem population, or take objects or plants and populated them. Before I jump on this, one thing, the Vue utilize its own system for the plants. You can use it objects, but Vue have it a native type of the plants, which is called the growth system. So the plants is actually respond to inside the wind. Native plants of the Vue respond inside the applications with the moving leaves, branches, and flexibility. And with introducing Plant Factory, that options actually jumped many folds up, because now you can create it, your own plants, you can modify them, and that is quite a bit a big plus for the applications. Inside the Terragen, you can use it plants and you can use it populate large sections with those plants and manipulating with them. However, most time those plants are static and they come from or Xfrog or maybe from some applications you created. So the animations and movements of the plants inside the Vue is a bit more natural. You can animate some plants inside the Terragen, but it is will require some manipulations with sizing, placement, or maybe some deformations inside the object. And as example, that is big plus inside the Vue. Right here, you can native Vue plants. The leaves can be animated separately, and also you can apply different flexibility to different part of the plants. So if you look for this kind of animation with the plants, maybe create a field with going, you'll need to use a different application with Terragen, or you can actually use it inside the Vue. With the draw with Vue, it was a big problem on the early versions of the Vue when you have a flickering, when you had a large scale ecosystem or populations. And with animations, you see the pixelization start flickering. Was due to the non-collision detections inside the leaves when they intersect each other, and that was reduced quite a bit in version 9, and from version 9, 10, 11, it was improved every time with the rendering. So right now you still have some small effect on the flickering, but it's insignificant again. So right here, this is a plant and populations of large distance. You can perform both inside Vue and Terragen. From experience, I find out that in Terragen, those populations work a little bit easier because I can define a zone where I created and populate, or I can populate overall. And with massive polygons, the Terragen handle this a little bit better than Vue. However, with a Vue, I think it's version 10, when you can have a 360 degrees echo population. So what is meaning? You can populate with the plants on top of the object and also on the bottom. And because Terragen provide only with displacement, you can have it overhanging. The plants not necessarily populate under the object in this case. So you still have a little bit older version type of the populations with the object inside the Terragen. However, with the using surface shaders to control populations, you can actually can a little bit more define and create a little bit nicer, more natural look inside the Terragen with populations than inside the Vue. To do same effect inside the Vue, it's take a little bit longer tweaking with a population system to achieve same result that can be done a little bit faster inside the Terragen. So right here, plus and minuses. The bigger plus with the populations inside the Vue, it's have dynamic population. So it's meaning when you populate, the camera will take it and populate plants or whatever object you want just only inside the angle of the camera, reducing that use of the memory in area if you don't do it. Minus about this, that if you do animations, that won't work very well because the trees will populate and start jumping all over places. But for the single, it's work very well. You cannot do this inside the Terragen directly. However, you can. One thing what I want to say, a lot of options that natively or from one click available inside the Vue, you can creating inside the Terragen by using the node construct and everything. This is one of the very powerful tool, and how I said before, think about this, it's mostly almost Linux. You can achieve a lot of stuff, but what is inside the Vue done by one click by done developers, again, Vue orientated a lot for the artists, so you don't need it go on a backend that much in programming. However, you can do this, but it's not as easy as inside the Terragen to go on a back and done. With Terragen, you can do a lot of that stuff, but you need go inside the node constructor and build with interactions with this. Same with the Vue. Complexity of the Vue, even if it's look very easy to create, you can still go inside function editor to do this. An additional step, you can even go inside and with a Python script, you can do quite a bit complex operations. And one of the best example of this, if you check from the quad spinner, new applications he performed with the atmosphere and everything, it's kind of integrated. It's utilizing some Python scripting and other effect to integrate with the Vue. Speak about integration, the Vue by itself, it is API is more locked to internal development, and due to nature of the application, it's not that easy to access them. However, inside the Terragen, I'm not sure about if API is open for third-party developers. By working and analyzing how structure works, how components interact with each other, I'll say the API is more open inside the Terragen for to use. So that maybe will be a big step in the future for third-party developers when they start bringing additional content inside the Terragen. So okay, on populations, also on a population system inside the Vue, you can use a painter. So you can create ecosystem, and you can add, let's go ahead and add something very fast. So you add, and you can utilize painting tool, so you can paint directly over materials. You can inside the Terragen, you can also apply painting. If you apply the shaders, and you can paint with the objects as well and location. And actually the painting tool inside the Terragen takes step up. For example, I can even paint my clouds, and I have a tutorial about this. I can paint location and I can paint clouds in a sky or other things. So The painting tool inside the Terragen will cover everything. It's like almost a masking shader you can create for any object you wanted. Inside the view, the painting tool apply for the materials if you do on the terrain, or for the ecosystem or object placements as well. But it's a little bit more defined painting tool inside the view, and with the version, I think it's 11, was introducing all additional effects. And this is effects that's based when a particle system was introduced inside the view. So you can take each individual instance and kind of manipulating and apply the effectors of the any environmental effectors or custom effectors to the ecosystem population. So this is kind of more flexible inside the view. However, the price, how I said before, it is a performance will affect some. Speak about particles. The view was introduced and support particle system. It's a basic particle system. It's not very complex. Does not support some fluids and other effect. You can simulate them, but again, they're little bit heavy on the use of resources. So when you render, it's take a little bit time. It is useful when you're going inside the atmosphere and you start using as a rain and snow effect inside your application. Terragen currently does not have any particle system, and to create a rain or snow effect, you need to be a little bit more creative with applying. So how I said, it is a little bit different between, in that case, between view. In atmosphere editor, you notice that by default, and view 12 add additional the photometric type of the rendering. So you have a different type of the models for the atmospheres, and some of them legacy, like a standard. It's one of the first volumetric, the legacy. Most time nobody will use, or use maybe sometimes I use volumetric when I need render for faster, but they are very rarely use a type of the atmospheres. Most time you will use it spectral atmosphere, all volumetric is new one, or environmental mapping if you need HDRI kind of mapping lighting to the system. The Terragen provide different type of the render and atmosphere settings for you. So you have a type ambient occlusion or global illuminations, and you can actually customize global illuminations quite a bit with a setting, so you can define inside the Terragen 3. So you have options applying and tweaking, and I still am not sure. Well, out of box, the Terragen produce, on my opinion, more realistic renders with atmospheres. The lighting look real nicer, and it's much faster to render inside the Terragen than inside the view. And how I say this is may also related to a little bit more complexity of the light calculations inside the view than Terragen. For example, when you work with the clouds and other option meta clouds, the clouds actually look a little bit better inside the view out of the box. However, you can tweak then inside the Terragen. However, if you spend some time to tweaking and adjusting, the clouds work a little bit better inside the Terragen, a little bit look more natural and less grainy than inside the view. And this is very hard to compare, and this may take a long time, but overall the clouds in atmosphere is very close on both of them, but Terragen will allow, at least from view, a little bit more natural look, less saturated, and better work with the shadows as a render versus view. So the next things, and I mentioned a couple things, so let me go very fast right now over some objects inside the what is good inside the view. Option of the layers, and I do like a little bit better of the world browsers, creating additional layers, managing, manipulating, enable. It's a little bit nicer to access, as well as a selection of the object, because this is a little bit nicer and easy to work with this. Also, applying and sorting for the loading atmospheres, loading materials, or other things. It's a little bit easier to access as a shaders. Again, you can open and you can modify directly material shader this way. How I say it is have some effect because how the Terragen holding, but overall this is based on my experience. The other things what I like it is almost every property inside the view you can connect to the or drive with a function connect to the node. Inside the Terragen you can animate it similar way, almost all properties, but however if I want to take a width and control with maybe with functions, I cannot do or connect this. So that is probably will change in the future, that allowed working through the nodes to control some of those properties. However, Vue it's allowed to connect almost all of them through the function editors, so you can go inside and create quite a bit complex interaction with properties. And you'll notice right here you have a lot of options inside the Vue, as well as different more the noises, different type. It's bigger library in this case, and Terragen kind of falls short on that line to allow this to do it. Okay, next, so we'll have it editors. I mentioned about ecosystem or populations, and that is kind of some benefits inside the Terragen a little bit when we're creating. And please check some tutorials when I select the areas. In some cases, it's nicer, and plus many times what you can create with ecosystem population inside the Vue in Terragen, for example, rocks, you don't need to do this. You can use the displacements, which is, I say, the huge plus inside the Terragen. It's using displacement materials and terrains fractal high field. That is a big plus, and it's step ahead of the Vue by utilizing this. How easy, less complex it's using on the operation system, faster and more realistic result it's provided with this. So for example, if I need create rocks, I can just go ahead and create a fake rock, and you notice it's creating very fast rock layer right here that you can apply it. If I want to spread these rocks inside the Vue, I needed to create an ecosystem, add rocks and populating, and in this case it will take quite a bit of resources to create same thing. So displacements and overall stuff, it's handled much nicer inside the Terragen than inside the Vue. Ecosystem also it's a was evolution progression from the scattering tool, duplicating scattering inside the Vue. And I don't know if some people I still use it sometimes, this tool, but it's not such availability in a Terragen currently. So if I have an object and I want to scatter them, I need to do through the node creation and not kind of like direct function to do this. As I notice right here, we have it with displacement. We created nice fake rocks population, so it is big plus, and it's much easier and lighter work on the operation system. Okay, so we have it, this one. And next, wind. How I say, it is not total real. It's not relative to the Terragen at the moment because the plants cannot be animated this way. But with the Vue, you can actually going inside the atmosphere, and you can set up a specific wind effect on the plants, directions, and other effect on that. So this is quite a bit benefit to creating all this global effect. Vue also allowed some simple basic shapes, so it's similar to the inside the Terragen. So when you create it, you can go inside the object and create it some very similar, but Vue provide also options for some simple Boolean operations, so you can build a very simple Boolean operation objects, a little bit maybe more complex rock formations by utilizing simple shape, Boolean operations, and displacement on those objects, so you can build like arches or other options inside. To do this in Terragen, you cannot do as easy as in a Vue. However, you can do this by same utilizing objects or importing them. And I think the goal of the Terragen is not to duplicate other applications or provide modeling tool. It's more as environmental, and they provide a very good tool for environmental. So you can, but the main goal is take and allow to import objects from the standards OBG or other ones if it's big to inside and work with those objects directly. Okay, so let's go next. I mentioned the Gizmo. The preview modes after render is a little bit nicer inside the Vue, as well as access some properties and render. This is almost something very good inside the Vue. You can go and modify all the settings simply, but I found in many cases the Terragen options of the going and creating different type of renders and renders cameras, it's more useful and easy to access. So I can create different type of the renders. I can create them, save, and directly fast access or select them from the render. So this is kind of nice options and easier to use than inside the Vue, easier to access and more manageable as well. It's provide a little bit more options for me to control my renders than inside the Vue. But Vue also provide additional options that is very useful. It's a G buffer and multipass. So if you work with other applications, you can create all this mask select or select channels and everything. With inside the Terragen, you cover this by exporting and creating FXB film box format, so you can go directly and connecting through that access as well. So you can access, but it's work a little bit different ways than inside the Vue. However, and how I said before, the Vue have some time develop with this, and again, that options is nicer when you can create it and work with multipass. For example, I'm using a lot of time to create separate mask for the object, save them, and after in Photoshop, it's provide much easier for me to access specific components. So this is actually better inside the Vue, but overall render and setup is a little bit nicer, I think, inside the Terragen. Okay, so here's a few things. Let's split on another part, and next one we'll look a little bit closer on what is benefits inside the Terragen.